Hello, and welcome back to the Projector Stories Podcast. This is a human design podcast where we basically talk about our personal deconditioning journeys. I am your host. Well, I'm one of your two hosts, Sarah. I'm a 1-3 emotional projector.
I'm your other host, Lora, 5-1 sonic projector.
And like I said, in this podcast, we both have the 1156 channel of storytelling, and so we like to kind of just talk about what's going on with us, as well as having our right minds involved. So we never really know what's going to come out. So if you are correct for us, this should be good, and I hope that you enjoy it. Lora, has there been anything going on this week for you in terms of mental chatter or physical stuff or events in your life, interpersonal things that you want to touch on this week?
Boy, oh boy, has there. It's funny. Yesterday, I had 3 things on my mental agenda, and I can't remember the third, so I only have 2 things for today, it seems. But then I added another one, so I have 3, but one is missing, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was. But to start us off, um, this has been not the most fun week, and I don't know if it's the eclipse or the sun moving into my first house or something else looming. I don't know what it is, but I've had a lot of anxiety, and it's funny. It's like a continuation of our conversation last week as we were talking about fears, but my body has been experiencing a lot of physical anxiety, and it's not fun. And it's really hard to try to get the mind to just let go of the wheel and surrender to the form when there's a bunch of anxiety in the body, because the mind really doesn't want to do that. And it's a week when you whip out the tarot cards. Last night I was whipping out the tarot cards to try to soothe and appease the mental chatter. And yeah, it's just been a week. I was gonna share all the details of it, but I don't even know if I want to.
Well, what do the tarot cards say?
Well, okay, so it's just it's gonna be a storytelling moment. Um, if you remember, some months ago, I was invited to jury duty. Lo and behold, I forgot until this week when I saw an Instagram reel of someone being on vacation and realizing they forgot they had jury duty. And then I was like, wait, oh no, that's me. Um, and so it's next week, and I haven't done anything about it. And so there's that. And then I saw in the projector group, someone else said they had jury duty and they went, and someone who's been in their process for a while, someone longer in it than me. And it's just the mental decision of what to do. Do I be radical? Is this homogenized propaganda? How much can I reject the societal just requirements of being human in modern day life? Can I pretend not that I didn't receive it and just not go? Now there's physical evidence of me into the world deliberately refusing it because I wasn't gonna say it, but now I am. But anyways, yeah, it's just the anxiety, and my undefined emotional center just wants to hide in a hole and pretend it doesn't exist. But as much as my notself is avoiding confrontation and truth, the anxiety of oh, you have to prove that you're a good, decent human being. You have to do it. You have to do it is still there. And I can't turn off that anxiety. And it's just manifesting as stress. And I think it's just the combination of that plus eclipse plus other stuff. Um, and I was thinking about just that theme of forgetfulness and the anxiety it causes. I used to be a better muggle. A lot of us used to be better muggles before we entered into the mystical realms of astrology and human design and all that. But when I was in college, I was on top of things. And as I was thinking about this, the song "Taking Care of Business" weaseled its way into my head and it's been stuck. And I'm like, no, I'm not taking care of business. I'm doing the absolute opposite of taking care of business. I am hiding from business in every possible corner of the world. And I was just reflecting on the person I used to be, how like it wouldn't be difficult to do something. It wouldn't be difficult to use sacral energy to just do what needs to be done and like not think twice about it. I didn't have anxiety about accomplishing tasks. Lo and behold, here I am today, and every little task gives me huge anxiety. And I don't know if it's the deconditioning process of my sacral center. I don't know if it's being around sacral people who have anxiety within their own sacral centers. So I'm picking up on the behaviors and mechanisms of their sacral energy and adopting it as my own. I don't know if it's from them, but it's not fun and I don't like it. Part of me wishes I could go back in time and be that like blase, what have you. It doesn't matter, just do the thing that needs to get done person. But that's not my reality right now. My reality is someone who is just like curled up in a little ball of stomach pain and chest pain, thinking that I'm a bad person for pretending that I wasn't called to go to jury duty. And yeah, that's just been my week. And it's just like it's interfering with my sleep, my well-being, my mental peace of mind, everything. And yeah, it's just not fun.
No, no. I mean, there's so many different threads that I could pull on there.
Pull on them, pull on them.
Threads. um, yeah, I mean, the first thing to say is just, there's something to be said about being like a half-baked person, because it's like choose a side, choose a side, either be your not self or be yourself. And of course, there's arguments to be made that like you're always choosing a side no matter what. Like there's not really a gray area here where you get to like pretend like you're not being not self because you're not acting, because there's no action. Something that came to me recently is just the fact that like this is a this is a process, and unpleasantness isn't indicative of you're not, doing it right. And in the deconditioning process, it's like there's this half-baked quality. I think about all of the moments in time where I like realized that I was drinking or I was doing some other kind of form of drug, partying, doing whatever in order to silence the mind so that my body could just do what my body wanted to do. And so, whereas in the past I've just wholesale been like, that was bad. That was bad, Sarah, not being good, drinking and stuff. Whereas I realized it's, oh, the power of my mind has become so vast in its perceived power, even though it's not control, that it caused my body to not be able to just function naturally as what it does. And that existed for me before human design, and that's part of the reason for me, like, this isn't like I was someone who had like a really successful life prior to human design. It's like I've failed at so many things and my life has just not been good in a way that I feel like I surrendered to human design, essentially because, it's like this is, it's like finally the worst of the worst, the worst, you hit rock bottom and you're like, fine, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to follow my strategy and authority because clearly I don't know what I'm doing. But it also reminded me of, I just sent Lora a link from Richard Beaumont, who I believe is either a generator or a manifesting generator. But he's a 1-3, and he talks about the third line having everything to do with like the material way, and also the third line of every gate has to do with the material way, because he says something along the lines of like money is a dirty business because it's basically all not self. Like our real selves have nothing to do with like don't care for money, have nothing to do with it. And he reminded me in that like the point of this is not to not ever do not self things. It's to know that when you're doing not self things, that's what you're doing, not identifying with it. It's not to not make money materially. It's to not identify with the self that is making money materially, right? It's to remember what your definition is and what it is that you are without all of those requirements or the, the needing to prove the worthiness. It's like very different to use the open centers to make money, um, as opposed to need to prove your worth so you're making money, right? And I am using money because that's what he was talking about, but it really does translate into all different kinds of experiences that we have to kind of like dirty ourselves in the muggle territory. And I fully expect and anticipate it's like when you're deconditioning, your mind is trying to grasp it. You're so caught up in trying to understand how to be correct that like it prevents your body from actually just like living whatever it needs to live. I've lost myself and lost years of my life to my mind. Um, and so, yeah, it's just one of these things where it's like we're allowed to make mistakes and dirty ourselves in the process because at the end of the day, like we're not going to understand how to live correctly unless we're bumping into things and seeing where we're not correct. Otherwise, we're just stuck in our head going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth about a decision. And it's like, well, sometimes, you can wait as long as you can wait on the emotional wave, but sometimes the material reality forces decision on you and you make a decision and maybe it's the right one, maybe it's the wrong one, but you get to see what happens. And we're supposed to be aware of what is correct for us so we can live in that and we can release the mental chains that are kind of shackled around us. But we are going to inevitably, like along the process, do things where we're still not self because we haven't lost the cellular conditioning yet. It's still in there. So I guess it's not really any type of judgment call on what you should do. But it is just saying like, whether you do it or you don't do it, it doesn't really matter that much. And you're going to find out through resistance, and not even resistance, but bitterness, if what you did was incorrect. And it's like, we're not as precious as we like to think. It's like sometimes we need to experience the bitterness where we're like, I taste that. I know that's why I'm not supposed to be doing this type of thing. And yes, I'm a 1-3, but the material way is a third line process. And so when we're dealing with anything that's dealing with material, not self land, it's very third line. Um, so I don't know. Does that does that bring anything up in you, Laura?
Yeah. Well, as we were talking, I was trying to find the tarot cards that I pulled yesterday since you asked. They ended up, I guess I shuffled after I finished my reading, so I had a fish for them, but um I did the Art of Life tarot, which has quotes, and I use this one not for the cards themselves, like, oh, it's a two of swords, but rather for the instructional words of wisdom that they offer. So, um, I think the first one I pulled was a chariot, which is do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Ralph Waldo Emerson. And so that made me think like, okay, it's fine. Just don't go. Just don't do the thing. And then the next card was the Ten of Swords, which is those things that hurt, instruct. Benjamin Franklin. And then I was thinking, well, is it hurting to instruct me to go or is it hurting me to instruct me to not go? Like, I don't know. I don't know. There is also the Knight of Wands, which is the real voyage of discovery lies not in finding new landscapes, but in having new eyes. Marcel Proust. But still, like, you can have new eyes no matter where the voyage takes you.
What was the third?
Knight of Wands, the real
Okay.
voyage of discovery lies not in finding new landscapes, but in having new eyes. So it's not about treading into a new path. So again, confusing, not very clear. And then the last one was the Five of Pentacles, which is the like most clear card of the bunch, which is resolve to be thyself and know that he who finds himself loses his misery. Matthew Arnold. And so I figured, okay, be thyself, which means don't
What's
be a
that?
generator. What?
No, you said it means be yourself, and you're like, and I'm like, wait, but what's that? Because we have open, undefined G center.
Oh,
Sorry,
well,
keep
yeah.
going.
No, but I was thinking of like, in the past week, I saw that reel on Instagram, then I saw that comment on Facebook. And if I was a generator, I would be responding. I'd be like, oh yeah, do the thing. Oh yeah, sacral energy to respond. But I don't have sacral energy. I'm not a generator. I'm here to be invited and to use my energy preciously. And so that just gave me the courage to like give a metaphorical middle finger to the jury duty people and to ignore them. And it brings up an interesting thing with the undefined emotional center, because most undefined centers have, oh, not active or inactive, that's not the right way to describe it, but like the not self themes have a certain quality or frequency to them of don't prove yourself, don't know when enough is enough, don't know what to think about. And then when you look at the solar plexus, it's avoiding confrontation and truth. So it's kind of like a double negative. So instead of it's not like don't pursue the truth, it's don't not avoid the truth, or however you want to put it. Maybe that's too many negatives smushed together. But it has a different way in which we interpret the not self theme of the solar plexus, which is to say there is something to do. You know, with the ego center, it's don't prove yourself. With the Jutes, don't look for love. But with the solar plexus, it's do face confrontation and truth, but when it's necessary. And so it's a very confusing undefined center to have. I'm sure it's confusing for the defined people who have it too, but it just operates in that weird little nuanced way, which makes it confusing. Like, do you avoid confrontation and truth or no? Like, that's the natural state of it. I don't know. um but something else I wanted to say was, like, back in the day, not only was I a better muggle, but I would trust my intuition a lot. And so, like, I was someone who would, uh, what I would now describe as listen to my spleen, but it's more just like I would be intuitive. I would trust my instinct for everything and I wouldn't think twice about it. But that means I was responding, like, if my intuition said do something, I would do it. And so it wasn't necessarily that I was being correct as myself, but I wasn't over mentally processing my decisions. I would just do things in the moment if intuition said so. Like, I had the courage to do that. And since I've learned I'm a projector, like, that courage has flittled away, and like no more courage to do things when necessary anymore. And I've gotten to into like bitterness from that, from following that instinct in the moment, because there is initiation involved. And so something you said was like, okay, see if you're bitter now from this experience. But something we discussed this past week is that we're chronically bitter. And when you're chronically bitter,
Yeah.
it's really hard to discern where specific bits of bitterness are coming from. Is it from the overarching umbrella of bitterness soup that we're swimming in? Or is it like specific? Is it one particular thing that is bringing a specific flavor of bitterness, extra potent bitterness to the bitterness soup, that we can discern as like, oh yeah, I did that thing and it brought me bitterness. Like, when you're swimming in bitterness soup, it's overwhelming because it feels like you're drowning in bitterness and you don't know what's causing it, and you just have to like keep on waiting keep on waiting for something to come along and bring you a little flavor of success to change the flavor of the soup. Well, yeah, like soup is my analogy for today, it seems. But yeah, so my point was with the whole like who I was before versus who I am now. Before, like, I would listen to that splenic feeling. Oh, that's it. So this week I've had anxiety, which my logical mind deduces like, oh, it's your spleen telling you something is wrong. Like, this physical sensation in the body of the spleen being like danger, danger, danger. Again, it goes back to that previous conversation we had, I think last week, about um being permeable and not being able to listen to your authority correctly when you're taking in all these things that are incorrect for you internally and being conditioned internally. But um you know I would previous Laura would look at the sensations in her body and being like, something's wrong, something's bad, something needs to be addressed because you're not feeling good. And now current day Laura is like, you think your spleen says danger, but what if it's your mind saying that it's your spleen saying that there's danger and there actually isn't any danger, and it's all made up in your little not self mind, and there isn't anything to actually fear, and it's just the current transit weather passing through you, the neutrino ocean of consciousness, and it'll pass within a week, which it probably will, because hello, there's an eclipse happening right now and the transits are not so much fun right now. And it's just so easy to then like put all these additional stories and thoughts and words onto what's happening and not exist existentially in the moment. And it's just a soup. It's a big hodgepodge of a soup. It's distressing. So you just live moment by moment and you do the things and you watch what happens. And maybe it perpetuates the bitterness soup. Maybe it doesn't. Who knows? But yeah, that's that's what I had to say in addition to what you said.
Well, that was a whole lot. And it's like, first of all, folks, me and Laura both are super mindy people. We just are. And so it adds, like, it's what probably brought us to human design, but then it also adds a level of difficulty and deconditioning because we're so mental as it is. And that's where all of the problems reside. And so, like, there was a few different things. First of all, just to say, the way that I interpreted the tarot cards was like, go to the thing and tell them that you don't believe in this bullshit on the first day. Like, go to the jury duty, and then when they ask you the questions, see if you
The
can
thing is,
qualify.
The thing is, I don't have a way of getting there. Like I already told them when they first requested me, like I have no way of getting to Compton. Like I'm not gonna take 3 hours worth of public transit to get there. And so I had to do it on their website and in the adequate period of time to do it. And then again, they like requested me at Compton again, and like still the same thing, but like I think too much time has passed for me to request a different location. And I don't have a way of getting to Compton. Like my parents are busy. My mom has doctor's appointments this upcoming week. Like I don't have a way of getting there. So I can't even show up.
I'm not saying what like the capacity is, or there's things, if you could get your parents to pay like an Uber for you or something like that, because if I don't know what the potential like ramifications are of missing jury duty, but if they are profound, then it serves you would expect your parents to be able to like throw down the money for the Uber. um, so unless they're like, fine, just cart her off to jail, it's fine. But that was just my interpretation of the cards. It's not, that was my immediate interpretation of the cards, but that's biased by all of my personal perspectives. It's like we have our own flavor that we see with. So that, and then also it's just like such a good example again of like the mental chatter, because in 2 months time from now, you're not even gonna be thinking about this,
I know. It's
unless
so
you're in jail.
annoying.
Um, unless you're in jail. So then you're going to be like, damn it, I should have gone. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. You might get like a ticket or something. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't, I just, what I recognize, and this is something big for me that like happened this week, is like there's this life that's happening with my body, and then there's this life that's happening inside of my mind, right? And the one that's happening with my body has nothing to do with my mind, but my mind can get my body into a tizzy, right? Like my mind can do that, and I would invite you to look at your fear gates, just as a potential opportunity for like seeing what stories, are going on, and then like pointing out, oh, this is like that fear gate. And I'm here to be wise about that. And it's like, this is a normal thing. Or even, like, this is an eclipse. Like, this is an eclipse that we're having. We're in the middle of an eclipse sandwich, in fact. And so just like knowing that and being like, yeah, this is going to be high strong energy. Like, you're not dealing with your typical just like full moon and new moon lunar cycle. So, and this energy in particular wants to grab you. it wants to grab you and do what it will with you. And I get the problem, because what it feels like is inaction or action the correct response, and you can't figure it out because there's so much mental chatter. It's like, this is the issue with deconditioning 101. But what I'm hoping for myself, at least, and for anyone who's deconditioning, is something that the person who's teaching the Living Your Design class I'm taking, Philip Red, said, was that, like, after like 3.5 or 4 years or something like that, like, the volume on the mind, fears and stuff went down. It's like we're waiting for the volume to like go down on some of this stuff, so we're not so involved in it when we're trying to make decisions, because it's like logicizing it is just going to get you more stuck. So I fully and completely understand, because like I said, I was having this like realization that, oh, like, the life that I see around me is what my physical body is capable of right now in this particular state of deconditioned. My mind is having a whole other trip, and it's preventing my body, in a sense, from living the life that it wants, but it's going to prevent my body from living the life that it wants because I'm still not deconditioned. And so again, there's like an argument for just like total inaction in these 7 years. But at the end of the day, we're going to look back on these 7 years and all of the trials and tribulations that we face along the path and probably be like, whatever. Now I'm on the other side of it, and I understand more on a cellular level what it means to be more correct as myself, because some of the nuances have really landed for me, as opposed to just being theoretical or logical ideas or patterns that I'm looking for. So, yeah, I'm not any help, that's for sure, but it's
You vote for going and not going to jail, so at least there's
well,
that.
if there's jail, if I vote for going and basically giving the FU to the system, like, just the first day, and then being like, yeah, I don't believe in this. I don't like, I think that this system is like nonsense. Whatever you have to say that is like true for you to get you out of having to do it. That way it's like there's no lingering questions or concerns down the line. And that's my own condition, not self way that I would do things.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, again, like, I think what the fear is a lot of times is that, like, we're beholden to this, like, when we're beholden to this material reality, it will like sully us. And when we go into our not self, like, we're gonna get stuck there forever. And it's like this knowledge, it just works on you on a cellular level. Like, I'm never not going to know human design. And even if it takes me 14, 21 years to decondition, because I'm super stubborn and I have a defined solar plexus that's been really wounded in a lot of ways, like, so it might take me longer. Like, I'm going to keep at it. So it's like the decision, or to do it or not, it's like you're not going to get a clean decision. You're not going to get one that's like, this is correct. You're not going to land on a place that's correct. It's going to, whatever's going to transpire over the course of the next week, and then whatever repercussions are going to transpire after that, and then in 2 years you're not going to give a shit about it anymore. So I would really like to be there. I'd really like for both of us to be there at that point in time, but that's not where we are yet. So we have to deal with the moment, um, and being incorrect in the moment, because we're getting so caught in our mind's interpretation of what we're supposed to be doing that we can't even correctly be, which is the whole problem, right? Like, this is the whole reason for human design. And I'm looking forward to the day where I just feel more and more resonance and within myself as myself. And I've been getting invitations lately. Like, they say, oh, projectors always get invitations. Yes, we do, but they're not always ones that feel successful, right? So, or the success is like, it's almost relative to the deconditionedness. So you might get, like, when you first start deconditioning, like, you get something, an invitation that leads to success, but the success is like shallow success because you're shallow still. But as you get deeper into yourself, it's like the success gets deeper and you feel more and more seen. And so the expectation to feel seen when you first start deconditioning and using strategy and authority is just, it's not, you'll get some of it, but you're not going to get the depth of it where you're really feeling like, oh, this is my design, that people are recognizing my frequency is correct for them and they're picking up on it. So I've had some invitations this past week where I just realized like, oh, like these feel like deeper, more intimate versions of success to me than some of the old things that I was labeling as success. And that's not related to jury duty, but I just wanted to, it really, what it all comes down to is the fact that like as you decondition, you change, your perspective changes, your fears change, the volume on your fears change, who it is that you conceive yourself to be changes. And so, the concerns of Lora 2024 are going to be different than the concerns of Lora 2026, but we can't fast forward the process, and so we're just stuck in mundane reality, fucking messing up shit and like thinking too much about stuff because we're still removing the cellular conditioning.
Yeah. um the things you just said go back and cycle back to what you were saying with Richard Beaumont, and how sometimes you just have to play the muggle game and you just have to do the things. I don't
Yeah.
know. I had thoughts in my head and now they're slipping away and not making sense anymore. But I like what you said, though my reality disagrees right now about like the shallow success versus deeper success. I feel like it's been the opposite for me. I feel like when I first started, I did have really profound moments of success where I could recognize it and feel it. And the longer I'm in it, the more shallow and less insubstantial all the successes are. It's interesting. I don't know.
Well,
It's been
yeah.
my experience, my reality. So maybe it'll shift again. Maybe it's not conditional and contingent upon the length in which one is experimenting, but it's contingent upon, I don't know, other things like fractal exposure, things like that. I don't know.
Or maybe you haven't gotten there yet, because what happens before you get to that deeper level of success is that you have all of the bitterness that you've ever felt in your life come up and just live in your reality for as long as it stays, as long as it needs to stay, as long as it takes for you to feel it so that you can release it. So I don't know. I mean, everyone's experience of it is different. I certainly immediately had some moments of success when I first started too, that I was like, ooh, 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 look at this, look at this. And then it was just like, I'm in hell for however long, So, I just literally this week or two, like past 2 weeks, I was like, oh, like I'm really being seen by a few people that I wasn't being seen by before. And that's got to be because I'm cleaning up my frequency. Um, but the person that experienced the success in the beginning is not the same person who's experiencing the bitterness now. So it's just there's different transits, right? There's different charts that we go through between Saturn return and other things. It's like we're not the same. And so I feel like the other thing that um, Kuhn from the Projectors Facebook group was in class sharing his story, and something was said, which is funny because this is going to sound ironic, but sharing his like journey in human design, and he said, "Stay away from stories." And so whenever I like, that's going to be something that sits with me, because of course, me and Laura are storytellers because we have the 1156, but it's for other people. Like internally, we shouldn't be telling ourselves stories about how things were or how they are or how they're supposed to be, because it's all not self. It's all fodder for not self stuff. So I even this past week, I periodically get my ass handed to me, and my not self gets thrown into stark relief by situations and people. And I think that I've got a handle on it. And the next thing you know, it's like I'm getting called out, or I'm calling myself out, or Laura's calling me out. Just something's happening where I'm realizing, oh, this is not self. And so, like, I was sharing a story this week about, or maybe it was last week, just like about how, um, the 2644 is a problem for me, and splenic and egoic definition are difficult for me because I feel like kind of sticky around it. And then I'm like, that's a fucking story, Sarah. Like, just stop. Like, it's not to say that it's not true. It's like, but it's a story and I don't have to think about it anymore. I can just let it go and see what life actually is serving up to me, instead of identifying with it and identifying with, whatever stories I have from what my relationships have looked like in the past, etc., etc. And do you want to say anything? Because I'm about to, it's not really a tangent, but it's a little bit of a tangent.
No, I liked what you were saying. Keep
Okay.
going.
So the other thing was that I was talking to the person who's guiding the course again about how the split definition bridge gates work, because I have 22 and 35 that bridge my split. And for split definition people, that is where there's the most profound level of conditioning, is within those gates and the archetypes of those gates. And you have to like look at it on many different levels, like with a microscope and with a telescope. And so what I learned was that the 22 has to do with basically like wanting to make a emotional impact on someone with words. Because the 2212 is an individual gate, or I'm sorry, individual channel, and individual circuitry is interested in empowering. And so there's an emotional empowerment that I've identified with as myself, where I try and over explain my feelings, over explain my emotions, because I feel like that thing is missing. And so, I've learned to think that that is me. And Laura has talked about this before, when I was going through my PHS problem and having difficulty following my PHS because of my circumstances and surroundings, and desiring to be able to harmoniously like emote in words what I was going through. Like I felt like I should be able to do that, and Laura said like, oh, we're bird watching Sarah's 22, because that's what it was. But what it comes down to is like being able to like emotionally impact others, and that can be through a podcast. So I had like a moment of being like, okay, well, the question always comes down to, because you could be a generator for a while if you've got the right transit and it's correct for you, you're universally to be a generator. Like it's correct for between the transits, and it's correct for your strategy and authority to act in that way, like Ra did for many years when he had sacral definition. um and so, there's moments, of course, where having an emotional impact is correct, but when my mind is telling me, oh, you need to say this in this particular way to have an emotional impact on other people, or yeah, basically to be able to express your emotions verbally with other people, like that's when I'm in not self land. If like that's the ulterior motive that I have, versus if it's a transit, it's being lit up by a transit, or it's because of a combination composite chart, whatever the case may be. And in a sense, it's similar for the 35, except it more has to do with wanting to have experiences and sharing them and have progress in my life, because the 3536 is part of the abstract circuitry, which is about well, the human experiential way. And so the 35 is like a comma within the abstract circuitry that kind of marks this experience as having been had. And so it's like my drive for progress, for positive or, whatever kind of change, is all locked into that 35 not self bridge, so again, it's not to say that I can't mutate or change and it's not correct for me to do so, but I see so many instances in my life where I've kind of tried to force the river on change instead of recognize like I can't do anything in this moment here and now to change. Like I have to allow my body to do what it's going to do. no matter how much I want to tell myself, oh, I need to do this differently, I need to have like willpower, do this, do that. Laura knows, she's dealt with my bullshit for 3 years now. So it's like just that, those two things were really big for me because, of course, for me, everything has to do with talking. And it, becomes more tricky too because I do have the 1156 of storytelling and I want to share, right? I have abstract circuitry, what my experiences are. But it's like it comes down to the recognition and the authority and the invitation to do so, when it is correct versus when it's not correct. And if I'm if I'm strategically planning or I'm making decisions around them in that way, it's not correct. So just like getting a like the longer you stay in human design, like you get a bigger picture about what the mental like framework that you have that tells you the stories that you're used to telling yourself is. But like we're still inside of it. So it takes a lot of time and I'm not fully there yet, but it's very humbling. Like Laura said earlier, to be like, oh, like even this podcast is reflecting some of my not self tendencies. Although to be fair, I do think it's correct. Because me and Laura are generators together. And also, if it was the old version of the podcast, like that wasn't correct and there was like a broken bond, but like my body will break the bond if it stops being correct. So I don't know. Laura, do you want to say anything on that?
Yes. Let's see. I, you kind of hit the point that I wanted to make in a very simple sentence, which was it all comes down to strategy and authority and the invitation and recognition of, yeah, you most certainly can impact people and transform them and empower them with your storytelling and your emotions. But it all comes down to being invited to do so, which, like, I totally invite you to do so. So all your storytelling into my inbox is correct. But then I can see how it would affect relationships or partnerships or other things in which you're living in the moment. And for you as the emotional person, you're not supposed to be reactive in the moment. You're supposed to, take your time and process things. So I can see how, like, in a charged moment, you might want to transform the person with the emotions you're trying to elicit and convict in them, and how that would be a not self tendency. But, like, yeah, you simplified it with three simple words. So no need to
Go
harp on
on.
that, to use that word that I love so much. Um, yeah, I feel like there's
Oh,
something else, but I don't remember.
that's okay. I was like, right minds. Like, it's so funny what I'll do with words. When I hear a word that I like, it's like it's almost like a song that I like. I'll like use it like multiple times for a few weeks, and then it will fall back into the abyss of the gray matter in my brain, and like I'll never use the word again.
And you're not the
Um,
only one. Like, again, I read a lot, and some books, they will reuse the same abstract word so many times. And it's like, okay, get once, twice. But when it happens so many times, like, you could use a thesaurus. Like, I know you're like trying, they probably don't remember using that word. Like, they see the word once, like, oh, yeah, I want to use this word. And they have multiple opportunities to do so, but they don't realize that they're using it over and over again. Not every author will do that, but some will. I'm just like, wow, I'm really learning the meaning of this word by reading this book. But yeah, I think we all tend to fixate on words and get attached to them and want to use them, much like other things in life.
So true. But yeah, I mean, it's again what it comes down to for the most part is like the not bullshitting yourself thing and like the recognizing, I think about it too with like people who are like projectors with defined egos. Um and especially the ones that have defined egos that are attached to their spleen, it's like in those moments you're supposed to be willful in a spontaneous way that's correct. Like you're not supposed to use your will to get what you want, your not self wants. Someone said something super interesting in the group, I cannot remember who, but it was something along the lines of like your not self co-ops your definition and
Yeah.
basically abuses it, right? Like that's what happens. And so,
And yeah, that's what's
um,
happening with my spleen, and like the mind saying, well, the spleen feels unsafe. So let's make a story about why the spleen feels unsafe and what we should do about it
Yep.
instead of just existing. So
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's a huge thing. It's like, it makes so much sense why I've had stomach issues, right? With my with my 3041 channel, where my 41 is Saturn. It's like, yeah, the it's not like your not self exists in a vacuum. It has to use some kind of energy to do its bidding. And I think I'm paraphrasing what someone else said in that thread, but it's like, it has to use your energy, whatever life force that you have frequency wise that's active within you, to do what it wants to do, like it, or what it thinks that it wants to do, right? So it's where there's just a lot of, I mean, it gets really meta, and it gets really confusing, because you can talk yourself out of a lot of stuff, because you're like, is this not self? I don't know. Is it myself? Is it my not self? I don't know. And what I'm expecting is that the 7-year point is like where the sensitivity to what is correct reaches like a fever pitch, where you're just way more sensitive to what's correct versus what's not correct. Um, which helps because it's like you were saying, what happens when bitterness is, you're in bitterness soup. It's like, how do you know if I'm more bitter or less bitter because of the situation, when I'm just bitter, period, all the time, no land in sight. It's there's that question too of like, we're not supposed to be correct in within our deconditioning, because it's impossible. We have too much cellular stuff that's moving towards our not selves as opposed to ourselves. So it's just, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where our minds want to pick things apart, but at the end of the day, like, the only thing that's going to clear the muddy waters and let them settle is time. So I don't know. I don't know, Laura. Big
Why?
slash
Nor
big
do I.
decision slash not big decision.
It's just
Big
frustrating.
decision. Yeah, yeah. Keep
Like you
going.
think, okay, oh, this whole complete system, it's gonna help you figure out what to do. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. No, it's
No,
not. It's horrible.
no, no. Well,
It's
no,
not
and I
horrible.
think that it will be better in the future because we're in the heat of it, but no.
Well, I put do not disturb on and I went to my settings and I made sure that it had the option of like no calls from anyone. And of course, I get a call during this. At least it didn't cut us off this time. I think
That's true.
if the call goes on for long enough, then the audio recording cuts off. But now I forgot what I was gonna say. Again,
That's
like I
okay.
don't. Ugh.
You were just talking about how
It
it's
was.
frustrating.
I don't have to continue. Have I talked enough about the frustrations, or do I harp on them some more? Again, it's like making up stories as we talk, but I don't. I feel like it's
Well,
not.
it's fun. Okay, here's the thing. It's good for other people to know like how in the weeds we get about this stuff. And again, it's like, it is the stories thing, because this is us trying to it's you trying to use your mind to make a decision, but I'm guilty as well of it. Um Not necessarily in the jury duty case, but in like the rest of the cases of the events and actions that I do in my own life. This is like where we go in the depths of trying to figure out if we're being correct or not. And I was like thinking about it in terms of like, the mind is like almost trying to be the body. It's like
Yeah.
trying to like juggle all of these different truths simultaneously. And it feels like if it can just understand everything, then the decision will be clear. But it's like, you're not the body consciousness who can run 100 different systems in your body at any given time and like can keep on functioning. and also your authority, like there's a big difference, right, with the mind trying to make this kind of caricature of being correct as yourself, and so you're like trying to fit into this costume that your mind created, as opposed to just like letting the body break through it and just be. And so it's super funny, right? Like, it's
That's one way of
hilarious.
putting it.
Yeah.
Funniest? What adjective?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like funny thinking about how stupid the mind is when it's like trying to juggle, like, oh, well, I have splenic authority, but oh, I have, or for me, it's like, oh, I'm abstract and I have the 1156, so I'm supposed to be impacting people, but not always impacting people. And, it's like, and I have an open G center, so other people have to invite me to places. I can't live wherever. Like, it's like trying to get all of the different stories to like work mentally together, and it doesn't, and it never will. They won't fit. It's just the only thing that can be true is the way that you're living. And like that's where your truth is made evident. It's not made evident anywhere else. But I don't, I'm not there yet. I'm kind of in the needing to squeeze all of this shit out of my cells place, and in pain, emotional pain and physical pain regularly, because of all of the bitterness. It's just all of the bitterness. So it's coming up. It is in my face. It's in Laura's face. This is where you guys find us.
Yep. I remembered something that I previously wanted to say when you were talking about your bridges, which is Venus is
Okay.
currently in 22, just FYI.
Nice.
But also, again, I feel like it's just neutrino ocean weather. Like, it's not always this bad, but for whatever reason, this part, like, I've gone to jury duty before. Previous Laura was like, fine, let's go to jury duty. We'll have some fun. Like, my kitchen's environment likes people. And so I don't know why my mind is so opposed to the idea this time. I really don't. And it's just annoying. But I
Yeah.
have a theory for one, which is more stories. But one lighter thing, I'll like squeeze in this lighter thing that I wanted to share this episode is the conundrum of manifesting generators versus generators, of which we are neither, and yet I want to talk about it. I wanted to get a children's book for my nephew of like, oh, I'm a generator. Like, I have emotional authority for him to start living his design, even though he
Uh-huh.
can't talk. And I was asking in the parenting Facebook group because I'm in just about every human design group that I don't belong in. Like, I'm not a parent. I'm in the ones for reflector. It's like I'm in all of them. So I was asking in the parenting group if they had book recommendations, and I discovered one person who made books so far that are all out, and she separated generators from manifesting generators. And I have a pickle with that. And then I saw that there's and like her books didn't really speak to me. They're affirmation books. Um, but I don't know, like, not to poke a mean finger at her, it's just like not the right frequency, I don't think. And then I saw someone else commented that they saw another books, but those books aren't all out yet. There's only two. I think the Manifester and the Generator are so far completed. But again, looking at that person and what they're doing, they're gonna make a separate manifesting generator book. And there are four aura types, people. There are four aura types. And when
Yep.
people say that there are five, I'm just like, no, like that is the propaganda, the pop human design that is out there. And yes, manifesting generators operate differently than generators. Look at projectors. Like, we don't have 16 different projector types based on all the different nuances. No, we have one group to bottle us all together because we're projectors. We don't have sacral definition and we're not manifestors. And just like generators, like whether you're a manifesting generator or not, like you are a generator, you have a sacral center and it is your aura type. And yes, there are nuances, but for you to be separated into a different group, I mean, yes, like you're a majority of the population, but still, like it's incorrect to draw a very firm, solid line between the two groups because although there are differences, just like there's differences between mental projectors and emotional projectors for sure. You're still operate like you still have the same strategy and authority. Well, not the same authority, but you still have the same strategy and the same
Yeah.
aura
But
type.
you have the same penetrating aura. That's the thing. It's the aura type is what you're really getting at, because yeah, I mean, I think that we all have nuances to the way that our energy shows up. So just because I'm a projector with a penetrating aura and Laura's a projector with a penetrating aura, like the way that our frequency, our auric frequency shows up is different, not just because she's splenic, but because of all the different activations that she has and the ones that I have, you know, the separation. But we're both penetrating auras, and that's because we don't have sacral definition and we don't manifest any motors to the throat. So yeah, I mean I agree. I guess I agree with what you're saying.
Well, it makes me want to put a call out there and like call all those people out, but like I don't have the energy to do that I'm not a manifester. I'm not gonna make an impact on that front, and I'm not gonna go into their auras and try to correct them. It's not none of my business to do so. But it makes me frustrated because I love to use that word, just like I like to use harp. I'm very frustrated, and I wish there are people out there creating correct aura books saying there are 4 aura types, and that the differences should more be around aura, I mean authority, and not necessarily whether you're a manifesting generator or a generator. And it frustrates me, but that's just a little thing. Maybe someone will come out with correct books. Maybe I will get the manifesting generator book and the generator book just to see the differences. That's another thing that bothers me that's like irrelevant, but like you go to a bookstore, you can open the book and read it to make sure it's the book you want to read. With these things, everything now online, you can't peruse the book ahead of time. And like I want to make, again, because I have no income, as I've said here before, and there's very little money to my name. I don't want to waste my precious few pennies on a book that I don't think is correct, like logically and instructionally correct for someone. I want to be able to read it first, and it frustrates me that I can't. So
Well, a
I'm
few
venting my
pennies or
story.
no, I don't. I was, regardless of the few pennies, but I still would not. Who wants to give somebody a book that's incorrect, or who wants to buy something that's worthless? Basically,
Well, maybe it's
sorry, I'm
not
not trying
worthless.
to be like. I
Maybe
know.
there's good points in it. Like I haven't read it. I don't know, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I get you. I get you. I'm not saying it's worthless to whoever the author is who put their blood, sweat, and tears into that thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to go there, but yeah, no, I get it. It's a frustrating thing. You know, we're in the wild, wild west. I don't care what anybody says with the internet and everything else. There's all kinds of unprecedented. Everything is unprecedented, and so I know there's things that we have access to that we would have never had access to in the past, but a lot of it creates more confusion and echo chambers and tunnel vision and all kinds of stuff, than perhaps is good. Anyway, is there anything else, Laura, that has been going on with you this week besides jury duty and your desire to buy a book for your nephew?
Yes. Well, it goes back to the whole jury duty thing, and it's something that we talked about on the side, which is my nervous touch versus your calm touch. And you said, oh, we should talk about this. So
Mm.
I bring it up in its relevancy because logically my mind would deduce that if you are in your correct PHS, your frequency is correct, and it leads you to be able to correctly identify and listen to your authority. And if your a frequency is incorrect because you're in your not self of the PHS, if you're putting your PHS into transference, then logically it would result in not being able to get your correct cognition to be able to discern your correct authority frequency. Um, so that's like the surface of it. But um, did you want me to share what I shared with you?
Yeah.
Um, I realized, well, I bring this up because I don't eat my PHS all the time. shock. I know. I feel like everyone's like, yeah, but uh, it's not shocking. It's nervous touch versus calm touch, and I came to some realizations about it that I shared with Sarah. Is like, my nervous system has to be engaged. And if you think about it, it's kind of like putting the body into fight or flight in order to eat correctly. And it needs to be like, my nervous system needs to be stimulated to the point where my attention is so caught up in whatever is sort of like attacking my body energetically that I have no idea what I'm putting in my mouth. And it happens. And like, I'm so engaged in whatever it is that like I eat without a thought or a register of like eating what I'm eating. And the the analogy of it is Patrick Star and SpongeBob SquarePants when they both get a chocolate bar, and Patrick Star just swallows his chocolate bar in a second and he forgets about it. And he's like, SpongeBob, you have my chocolate bar. You stole it from me. And SpongeBob's like, no, Patrick, you ate your chocolate bar. It's all over your face. Like, the evidence is there. And Patrick's like, no, like, I did not eat it. You have my chocolate bar. That's me when I'm in my correct PHS. To be so caught up in whatever is happening that whatever I'm doing, whatever is stimulating me, that my nervous system like cannot even fathom to think about food entering my body. My body just does it naturally without me having to like look at the food that I'm eating or think about what I'm eating. And it makes it really sad because I like food and I like to cook. And when I'm in that correct frequency, like, I'm not tasting what I'm eating. I'm just shoveling it into my mouth and swallowing it and probably not chewing it properly. And so here's the homogenized thing of like, you need to chew your food properly to be able to digest it correctly. No, not if you're like me and you have nervous touch. But um I can't always be in that state. It is exhausting to always be in that state of fight or flight. And if I'm not in that, like, the top three colors of PHS, so calm touch, nervous touch, low sound, high sound, indirect light versus direct light, those three are said to be, or no, it's the top two. Is it the top three? No, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my thoughts straight. They're in binaries, not in trigrams. So it's the first two share a certain binary, the middle two share a certain binary, and the top two share a certain binary. And it's the top two in which you can manipulate, or you're selective. Like, you can't choose to bring out the sun. You can't choose to make the sun go away if you have direct or indirect light. You have to wait until the sun is up to eat correctly. Like, you need that condition and you can't manipulate it. Whereas 3 and 4, you can manipulate it. You can manipulate your food to be hot or cold, or you can manipulate your environment to be stimulating or not. And yeah, it's really like, if you're in a stimulating environment and you need to eat and you're not calm, it takes a lot of work to bring your nervous system to a calm state to like regulate it in order to be able to eat properly. And so that means going into a calm environment, but even still, it might take time for your nervous system to relax properly. Or if you're in a calm environment, like, it's really hard to stimulate yourself and create a false sense of fight or flight in order to be able to eat properly. You can try to distract yourself, which I do. Like, I can pay attention to the dog or pay attention to things around me. But it does not put my body into that correct nervous frequency. And it's said that you can manipulate it, but I feel like you can't really manipulate it. You just have to be subject to whatever is going on and wait it out or wait for the frequency to change. And I don't, because I get hungry and I don't have the time or the patience to stimulate myself enough to be in my correct PHS. So I eat things aware than like, oh, look, my body is not activated right now. Like, my nervous system is not activated right now. I'm decently calm. Um, and I still eat. And I don't know if that is what is tunneling, avalanching into me feeling like my spleen is trying to say something that I'm trying to interpret when really it's my mind. I don't know. That I don't know if there's a correlation and a consequence there, but I wanted to bring up PHS for that reason, and just like the frustration. I mean, again, like it's hard. People who have first color determination, it's darn hard. They can't eat pizza, they can't eat pasta, they can't eat, I mean, I guess pasta like by itself, but without any sauce. Like there's so many things that they can't eat because they have to eat single ingredients at a time if they're going to be really proper about it. And that just seems like a heck of a lot of work. And I feel bad. Again, like there's the lack of enjoyment of food. And again, as someone who really enjoys to cook and really enjoys food, to think that the correct way in which I experience food is to not experience it and not have a moment with it and not be able to taste it. It's sad. Um, but anyways, those are my thoughts on
It's
nervous
so
touch.
funny. Just funny because we're opposite. So I'm like, I like joked with Laura. I'm like, we should switch nervous systems because like my nervous system is always stimulated. It's like it never is calm. And so it's like so funny to try. And well, first of all, it's like my stomach just tightens up when I'm really, really, truly in a nervous state. Like it's not even a matter of can I or should I eat or not. It's a matter of like I'm not hungry when I'm really, really anxious or stressed out or, but I was in I have nervous system trauma. I've been in a perpetual state of fight or flight for probably 20 plus years. And so it's not like I'm just going to wake up because I've decided that I have calm determination and my body is now calm, but I can do everything in my power in my environment to make sure that I'm not like extra stimulated, right? Like you can make sure that you're not extra calm. These are the ways that you can kind of start to wade into it to get more specific and particular about it. Because, I was talking to Laura, I can't say for sure, but yesterday I was on a boat and I have calm touch determination, which means, like Laura was saying, as opposed to her, I have to be in a calm environment. And I was eating fruit on the ship because the fruit was really tasty and delicious. And I personally, I like eating in that kind of situation, but I have stomach problems too. And today, it was actually like pretty bad comparatively. Like I haven't taken my muscle relaxer for my stomach in many, many days. And today I did need to, it's interesting, right? Because I'm taking a muscle relaxer for my stomach in order to like have my stomach feel okay, which is very calming, right? But I don't like taking it because it's medication. I'd rather just do it in a natural way. And you kind of, again, it's like it's like any other decision in life. I made a decision that I knew I wasn't supposed to make, and there were consequences. And it just hammers home the fact that, like, really for me it is about being, like Laura said, I was doing what Patrick Starr was doing. I was not one to um not like I was watching TV, I was driving, I was walking around and eating, like all of the things. That's how my transference showed up more than anything else. Although the fourth touch does transfer to all of the different types of eating patterns. And really the most important thing is just the environment's correct. So like I also had my time period where I was like caveman eating and doing all other kinds of things. But yeah, again, I don't know everything that there is to know. Again, in class, the class that I'm taking, a program with Leela and Darman was mentioned about, like, it's like a year-long program about PHS. And so like I'm intrigued about that, and that would be something interesting that it's the 4 transformations basically program, because it all starts with getting the body into the right frequency and locked in. And that takes time. And then all of the other things, it's like, again, with the same thing with this beginning of this conversation of like all of the mind chatter. It's like, well, you're not going to get to desire motivation because you're mentally trying to get to desire motivation, which is what me and Laura both have. It's like you have to be locked into the correct PHS, locked into the correct environment, locked into the correct perspective, and then boom, there's your motivation. But it's not like you can force the river, or you can mentally construct what desire motivation looks like and act accordingly. It has to just come out of naturally aligning the frequency and being locked within the frequency of what it is that you are. And so, these are like very little things that, if I pop like a caramel into my mouth when I'm walking around like mindlessly, it doesn't have a huge effect, but I imagine that it is like it slowly builds upon itself, right? I think that's why part of the reason why, besides just the bitterness of living a not self life, um, I have stomach issues now. And it's not like eating in a calm environment got rid of them immediately. But one thing I have noticed is just that, like, I'm eating way more efficiently. I'm not overeating almost ever. And that's an interesting thing since I've been in calm and I'm really paying attention to my food. Laura, if I were you, I would be listening to a podcast or watching something on your phone, like a YouTube video, while I was eating. In fact, when I'm doing what I want to be doing, which is not what I should be doing, that's what I am. That's how I'm eating. And then I can eat all manners of things. But when I'm super calm and I can look at my food and pay attention to it, that's when I get the best. Like, I have like a relationship with it, and then it's, I don't have digestive issues. I don't feel bloated. All of the kind of like IBS symptoms are like way minimized. They're not fully gone, but they're minimized because, again, like, my frequency isn't locked in. My physical frequency isn't locked in yet. And so time, again with the time. But if I was, like I said, if I was nervous touch, because it's funny, my other friend that I was on the boat with is nervous touch, and she's supposed to be eating by herself. I mean, in these types of environments. And I can see how, like, her eating in calm areas is like what maybe even she prefers, but it's not good for her, and it's more healthy for her to eat in other places. So it's just, yeah, I mean, again, not a specialist here, still learning about PHS generally speaking, although I did listen to all the audios that Ra gave, but, right mind and just like not a lack of experiential evidence still. But I know I feel better overall, just generally speaking, when I'm doing that. So it's, again, it's like you can get away with eating in a calm environment, but I don't know if it's going to have you firing on all cylinders to like the best capacity mentally. So it's, it's nuance, it's subtleties, it's like getting to the subtlety of what slightly feels better. Um, Even if it seems like you're missing out on something or whatever.
Yeah. Um, as you were talking, I was thinking about how when I first came across nervous and calm touch, it seemed really counterintuitive of if you have a right mind that you have to be nervous, and if you're left, you have to be calm. But for whatever reason, it just clicked in my head right now. Like, if you're calm, you have focus. Like, your mind is left and focused, and so it needs to pay attention to what it's putting inside of it. Whereas if you were right brained like me and nervous, then it's taking everything in. So it's not a matter of paying attention to what's directly going into the mouth, but it's taking everything in around you. And that means being on high alert and being stimulated. That's not how Ra put it. Ra said something else about needing your nervous, like your body to be, your digestion to be activated for whatever reason. You have to move, like your digestion is naturally slow. Therefore, you have to be moving or doing something while you're eating to activate your digestion, which maybe, I don't know, that seems counterintuitive to me. But what my brain just thought of right now is like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
interesting because it's not a matter of like calm for me being transference. It's not, because if you look at what transference is, it's transferring from one color to another color. And going from calm to nervous or nervous to calm, that's just within the color itself, within tone. The tone being 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5, 6. And that's not transference. That is, I guess, just the oscillation of the color itself. within the color itself, within the tones of the color. Um, so like maybe it's not super detrimental to be calm or to be nervous or to pay attention to that. That's like on the other side for our desire. It's not going into innocence. It's follower versus leader. That trajectory of being a follower to a leader, or moving from nervous to calm, or moving from calm to nervous, and noticing that shift. And then that shift is where the correct color is. But at the same time, color is exit frequency, and it's not something within our control. And this has been like a hot topic in the Facebook groups, um, of like, why are we teaching people to follow and actively pursue their PHS when it is color, which is the exit frequency of the neutrino through a crystal. And as an exit frequency, like there is no mental control we have over it. It just is what it is as a reflection of what's going on within the crystal, which is a whole other
Mhm.
nutshell, which we don't need to get into. Um,
No, I mean, the one thing that I will say is I've heard Ra say, like, if I'm in the wrong environment when I'm eating, it's like putting poison into my mouth on one of his audios. And so I find the transference from nervous to calm to be like the most problematic for me. Like that's where I feel like I can't digest because my stomach's all in knots and my stomach hurts. Whereas, if I was transferring to like the caveman kind of diet, like consecutive eating, like that wouldn't bother me at all. Because for the people who have touch, it's like, and for people who it's the environment that's important, not the content of their food, it's like when the most important thing for them is not what it's like it's the circumstance. So I don't know that I think along the same lines because of the way that the personality crystal works in terms of color is like an oscillation. I feel like it's different for the body, because the body can get locked in, so where the personality is always going to be oscillating. So I don't know. I mean, this is more questions than it is answers. It's just I definitely agree with what you were saying about like the peripheral, like because you have a right mind, that kind of overarching, like being able to take everything in versus like me who has a left mind needing to focus, or I'm sorry, not mind, brain, needs to focus. So yeah, I can see how that makes sense. And it's like, Ra has his own perspective and his own version of language and his own language tendencies. And so there's probably a lot of ways to, skin the proverbial cat and talk about it. And I think the way that you talked about it just now was very correct. And also, good old fifth line heresy. So yeah, I don't know. I mean,
but
PHS is a
also
whole
like
rabbit hole.
you have your empirical evidence, you have your experience, and experience doesn't lie. It's like you feeling sick after eating in a nervous state, like makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't deny that.
No. Well, and I mean, I can say, oh, maybe I'm falsely, like I said to you before, maybe I'm making a story up about why my stomach feels the way that it does.
Yeah.
So there's that, it's not like I have a lot of answers, but I do know that when I was eating out at restaurants, when I was all the time and all of this stuff, like it was bad. And it's not to say that I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that stopping that is what has created such like a relief of my IBS symptoms, but it's possible that that has like really, really played into it. But yeah, I don't know. The other thing, oh, do you want to say anything else about this?
No, I think I'm okay.
Okay. The other thing that I just wanted to mention was something that I said to Laura in our chat that I was like really excited about. and like, I'll fire off some random insights that I randomly have. But one of the other hot topics that comes up a lot in human design groups is like the nodes and the fact that they're points on the map, and they're astronomical points, they're not bodies, creates like a lot of issue for people who are trying to understand like why they get imprinting weight at all in your design chart. And I had the realization, it just popped into my head basically, that when you are because everything is connected, because everything is in a sense like literally energetically connected to the initial energetic bundle that we all came out of. Like, we're all connected to everything. The environment that we're in is a part of who it is that we are. Like, our physical environment is part of our physical selves. And I said vice versa to Lora, because also the environment is affected by us too. And so it's like, well, you're not your environment. Like, we're enclosed to the space that our body and our skin make up, but it's not true. Like, the environment in a sense is like this extension of you. And that's why they say too, like, you're a product of your environment. And like I said to Laura, and your environment is a product of you. And so it's actually like I think the nodes are one of the most true to you things that are in the chart. Like, even though they don't have the neutrino conditioning that our design and personality sun earth do, or even Jupiter, it's like there's a quality of it that is like so woven into who it is that you are, that it's like not discernible where your environment ends and you begin. So I don't know, Laura, if you want to say anything about that, but I just wanted to externalize it.
I wanted to hear it with your voice, not just reading it.
Okay,
So
well,
thank
there
you
you
for
go.
like saying it out loud.
Yeah. So
I think it
go
makes
ahead.
sense in the philosophical way of like, you are your environment. You can move things in your environment. You can manipulate your environment. It's very third line environment of you to say, if I might say, which
It
is funny
is.
because like your environment is a 3, but
Yeah.
it makes sense in the way you put it. And like, yeah, like there is issue or just confusion or discernment that happens in people who have definition based on notes, because
Yeah.
it is a location and not a moving, it's not matter. Like, we get so caught up in like everything that affects us is matter, and we're so hung up on like matter, atoms, things we can touch, things we can physically interact with, that when it comes to the things that don't have matter, we're like, ooh, it's not real. Like, ghosts aren't real, this isn't real, that isn't real. And so it just, yeah, is a reflection and a facet of that other quality of life,
Yeah.
consciousness, not
Yeah.
matter.
Well, and it's, to just kind of reiterate what I was saying, it's like the nodes are sending us information from like the great, like they're what Ra has called the great helmsman in the sky. And they are sending neutrinos down from that great helmsman, basically, from the fucking belly button of the universe. I don't know, I'm just making shit up now. But it's like for me, it took me a while to really understand too, because I have the 56 as my south node. And it's funny what you said about third line being my environment, because also third line nodes and third line, my physical body is the third line, are supposed to be like hypersensitive to the interconnectivity of everything. And I totally am. And that's part of probably why I'm the one that's saying this, because the environment it's almost as much you as anything else that you function with is. And so it's just understanding, like, we're in a neutrino fabric, and it's like our bodies are our bodies, but this thing that is surrounding our bodies is communicating with us, and we're communicating back to it. So it's kind of a Sagittarius philosophical rabbit hole, but it just made so much sense to me now too, because like I said, I have Cancer South Node in the 56 gate, and like I did not identify with Cancerians at all, but there have been many people who have asked me if I was a Cancer. And so I'm like, oh, okay. Like that's because like the South Node environment for me is more real for me than just like some path that I'm walking on. It's not just some like externalized thing. Like it is a part of my personality too. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. Laura, is there anything else you want to share today?
Well, on the logical side, like your environment line is what you interact with in your environment. I'm pretty sure like what you're surrounded by, what is there, specifically like people, third line people are in your environment, whereas your perspective, your personality and nodes are what you see. So you see the investigators, but you're bumping into and interacting with the martyrs and the anarchists to a certain extent. Um, that's like the very surface level way of putting it. But then again, like it's a
Yeah.
very thin line to bump into and transform and mutate with your environment. So I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. No, I mean, I definitely, there's a lot more to extrapolate from that concept. I like don't think that I've given it a proper treatment, but I'm gonna have to like let my brain settle on it for a while and figure out better words to use to describe it, because yeah, it's almost like an indescribable thing. But for now, anyway, is there anything else other than nodal stuff that you want to talk about today?
I don't think so. Well, there was the other thing, but I don't remember what it was. So no.
Well, hopefully you remember it between now and the next episode.
If it's still relevant, maybe it was something lighter also, like the manifesting generator thing, but I don't know what it was. Oh, it's so
Uh,
frustrating.
I know how that goes for sure. Okay, well then, this was a good episode. Uh, happy eclipsing. I mean, the other thing I guess that we should just quickly mention was, yeah, like Laura said in the beginning, the eclipse. We've talked about the eclipse being in eclipse season, and I feel like this time frame and this period of time is always when the planets are more likely to grab you. The program is really likely to grab you and in a sense try and get you to not follow your strategy and authority. So just being wise about making decisions during this time, I think, is helpful advice. Of course, always just do what's correct for you from your own authority's perspective, but yeah, I noticed that during eclipse seasons was when we can make really big decisions that go against our strategy and authority. Um, Other than that, Laura, do you want to say anything about the eclipse?
At the same time, though, they're rather faded, are they not? Like, don't they align us to certain trajectories that we otherwise wouldn't put ourselves on?
I mean, I think certainly yes, but it's still a strategy and authority thing.
Yeah. It's a
It's
big
still,
conversation, which we probably shouldn't get into right now. Maybe next
yeah.
time. I mean, like we're in a window. It's not just like a one moment
Yeah, it's
thing.
not a
So
one
next
and done.
episode, maybe we'll talk more. But yeah.
Eclipse sandwich. Yeah, it's an eclipse sandwich. Okay, cool. Well, thank you everyone for sticking around. Again, follow us on Instagram or Facebook. We're at Projector Stories on Instagram and Projector Stories on Facebook, and then the Projector Stories podcast on YouTube. Um, yeah, do any of the things that feel correct for you. Reach out to us, follow us. We'd love to chat. And other than that, Laura,
Thanks for listening. Catch you on the flip side.
take care. Bye.